It's first thing in the morning. It's a Wednesday. I've only got as far as making coffee, but I've had loads of thoughts kind of running around in my head lately, and I just want to get them off my chest, get them out there, and then I can hopefully stop thinking about them quite so much. I've been thinking a lot about purpose recently. I've always had to have purpose and some kind of constructive direction in my life. Even when I was in my early teens, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a costume designer, I wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to run my own business. And to a certain extent, I've managed all three of those things. But in between that, I've had obviously other purposes, like earning enough money to live on. And whilst doing those jobs, I've also been doing the other things that I really wanted to do on the side. So the writing's always been there. I've always been a writer. This is quite new for me. This is a different way of doing things. But previously I would have written everything down. I would have blogged about everything, because I run several blogs. And that's always the way I've enjoyed putting down my thoughts and communicating them. So this is different, and that's why this doesn't work in quite the same way. But it's a challenge and a learning curve, and it adds to purpose because I'm trying to improve on very basic skills that I have to help me in other areas of my life. So I do run the business, and one of my purposes after a long time became being able to not have to do the jobs I hated for money, so that I could do the thing I always wanted to do. And there's that age-old trope about, creatives don't make enough money to live on. But I think a lot of that is down to maybe temperament. I want to do the things I want to do, but I'm not interested in making tons of money. I'm not interested in being famous. I'm not interested in having billions of followers on Instagram. I don't care about any of that. And maybe that's also my age, because I'm older now and I don't care. I don't care what people think of me. I just want to do the things I love doing. So another purpose I ended up with was, how can I make money in small ways that keeps things ticking over and allows me to keep doing the things that I want to do, because I'm sick of doing the things that I don't want to do. And that's been a gradual process. So I went from a full-time job that I hated. I dived into going to university at 35 to retrain and to get to upskill for how the direction of my work was going. I went from doing costume design as a part-time freelancer for 20 odd years and decided I wanted to go into fashion, because there was just no money in the freelance costume side of things, certainly not over here in the UK. So I went to university. I found a course that was focused very much on design and practical skills, and I relearnt how to do things so that I could start up, make my business into a fashion design business rather than a costume business. And that worked, but transitioning then from 3 years of university, which taught me that I can get by on less money, that I don't need to have a full-time wage to get by, because I didn't have a job at all when I was at uni. That's when I learnt how to grow my own veg. I kept chickens, I did all sorts of things, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. For the first time in my life, I was doing the thing that I wanted to do all the time, and I was learning a new way of living at the same time. I was becoming more self-sufficient, living more frugally, although nothing compared to what I do now. And after uni finished, I kind of had to go back into odd part-time office jobs, but they were always short-term. So, I might be asked to be somewhere for 5 weeks, or it might be just a 3 afternoons a week job. So it gave me lots of time and lots of leeway to continue building things up from anew, while still having an income. When I came to the Northwest, I was literally focused on just doing the business. I had my first premises, and then I got a job helping to run the building that my business was in. So that was great, because I was in the building already. It was only a few days a week. It gave me lots of leeway financially, and it just all fitted in really nicely. So that was great until that wasn't anymore. A lot of my purpose in the last few years, like a lot of people's purpose, has just been to stay afloat. And I've been very lucky that by then I was working from home, I was selling solely online. So my purpose became just keep the business going, keep things ticking over. And that was fine. And that purpose for the last 2020, 2021, and I suppose last year as well, the purpose has been to spend as little money, make as much as I can, and just keep the status quo of my income and my savings and my backup funds going. Again, that's been fine. But this year is different. There aren't those excuses anymore. Everything, certainly over here in the UK, is normal now. We don't have any of those excuses. I certainly don't. But things going back to normal haven't improved my situation. Business is still tough because there's a lot of competition, and now with the way the economy is going and the cost of living crisis and energy prices and everything else, people are not as gung-ho with their money. So one of the things that I did with my business is I didn't want to be a part of that whole the fast fashion system, or the fashion system at all. So I was very focused on honing that into an upcycle and recycle business. So all the fabrics that I make my garments out of come from dead stock, end of line, destined for landfill. All the scraps that are left over from those fabrics I turn into upcycle braided coasters, and I'll show you some of those designs in a bit. I'll do a little montage and show you the sort of thing I do. And I started doing the same thing with handmade jewellery as well, rescuing broken, unwanted jewellery and turning it into other things. So there is a circular economy to it, but I still don't think that's much of a focus for consumers. And that's a weird juxtaposition that I'm in at the moment, because I'm not a spender. I don't need stuff. All the stuff that I have here in my flat has been acquired over years, but I don't buy anymore. I don't buy clothes. I don't buy home decor. So it's a strange setup, because I make stuff that I want people to buy. It's stuff that they don't need but may want, and I'm selling that to somebody who doesn't buy stuff. So I find it really hard to market myself and advertise myself, because I don't have the same feelings as the people out there who I would like buying my things. So now I feel like I need to relook at the purpose of what I do. I enjoy what I do, so I won't stop doing it. But that said, I don't even use it as my full income. I get most of my income from other things that allows me to keep doing the thing that I enjoy doing, because I'm creative. I also, I do a lot of the writing. I still do a lot of the writing. I always have. And one of my aims was always to publish my own book, which I did back in 2017. I published the biography of one of my ancestors who led a very interesting life, and that was the culmination of my writing existence. So I now have a physical book that I sell online, And again, I'll add links to that below. If you're interested in genealogy, in ancestry, in history, full stop, this may well be your thing. So you can go online and buy that. And that's not an advertising thing, I'm just telling you that's what I do. So that's been a feather in my cap, I suppose. But I sit back over the last few years and think, oh my God, what have I done with my time? All I've done is sit around avoiding COVID, keeping a roof over my head. But for most people, for a lot of people, that hasn't been the case. Lots of people have lost their jobs and their homes and their families, and goodness knows, and lots of people have lost their lives as well, for heaven's sakes. So I can't complain. I mean, when I think what I've achieved since I stopped working, you know, I've started the business, I've finally managed to become financially independent. I don't need to be living with a partner, which was always how I managed to get through things. Don't need that anymore, so happily single at last, which I finally found at the age of 42, which is ridiculous. All those years spent, you know, feeling that I had to have a partner and being with a partner because financially that's the only way you could get by. Certainly based on, even when I was full-time employed, you know, money wasn't enough. So I've got that. I've published the book. I'm learning 2 languages. I'm learning Italian and Scottish Gaelic because of the ancestral connections. And I've slowed down my life, you know. My time is my own. I'm not at anyone's beck and call anymore. Even the little money things that I do, the little side hustles, don't impede much on my time. But I need to find a new angle to my purpose, I think. Because running the business, making things, feels more like an indulgence, and I'm not driven enough to make it successful enough to become a full-time income. I used to have so much drive and so much energy and so much focus on what I wanted to do. And over the years that's gone. I think possibly that's just me slowing down as I get older. Maybe I think as you get older you get a little bit more cynical and a bit more realistic. You know, when you're young you think you can change the world, and I certainly felt like that. And I don't anymore. And I think that the world has been quite a wearing place over the last decade or so, and certainly now where everything seems to be a drag. And it wears you down, you know, the economic situation, the pandemic, which is something we'd never seen before like that, the financial challenges, now we have the Ukraine war and all the unsettlement that comes with that. We have enormous political upheaval, which people will say, oh, I don't worry about politics. But it's always drip feeding in the background. You know these things are going on. You know that the powers that be that you're supposed to be able to trust to run your country properly and look after you just don't care about you. They're bickering in-house and backstabbing and, you know, getting up to things they're not supposed to and lying about it. And in the meantime, they're not helping, you know, people at the bottom rungs of the ladder just to get by. There have always been people who haven't been able to get by. But as life changes and the pressures get more and the price of everything goes up, those people are getting left further and further at the bottom. So it's all a bit depressing, and it does get to you, even if you say, you know, you don't follow the news. You know, I don't follow the news. I know that it's not good for me. I'll skim read the headlines in the morning and then in the evening, just in case there's anything that I really need to know about. But even when you just glimpse those headlines, those things are still going in. That first coffee of the morning is just the best thing in the world. temperatures are definitely going up. It's definitely not as cold as it has been. The heating is off more than it's on now, even though we are still in February when I record this. But we're still getting very frosty nights, which of course herald a nice blue sky and a sunny day. So it's going to be a lovely one today. Yeah, so I don't know where my purpose goes at the moment. As a short fix, I want to get out more. One of the problems that I've got into is that I'm now at that point where I've got so good at not spending money that I'm now afraid to spend it, even on things that are worth spending on. So I'm trying to plan like some car camping trips, and car camping because I don't want to spend the money on hotels. And it's part of the adventure, I suppose. I have done it before, so I know how it works. But all the time I'm debating, do I want to spend, you know, the 60, 70, 80 pounds on petrol to do that? And of course I do. Change of scenery, go to a different part of the country, go and explore, do some genealogy research in places where my ancestors used to live. That's fun, that's what I enjoy doing. But I always seem to be able to find a way to convince myself out of it because of the money. But I've got to stop just staying still and just focusing on squirreling away every spare penny and not living. Because my work doesn't enrich my life enough. You can't just exist for work, even if you're creative. You need to go and do other things. And I've noticed I have got into that cycle, which has been easy because of the pandemic and what have you, and that became the mentality was, you know, hunker down, earn what you can, keep a roof over your head, and just get through it. But as I say, that excuse doesn't work anymore because we're out of it. It's not here anymore. It's a different kind of problem. And it's a problem that's slightly easier for me to circumnavigate because I've protected myself financially. But I can't just sit here in this flat, you know, studying interest rates for savings and making stuff which sells slowly and isn't my full-time income. And I can't even say, well, I'm so busy I don't have time to go out, because the whole point of doing what I was doing is that it gives me my time back. Whereas before, you know, when I worked in London and other places, my entire week was literally geared around getting to work, being at work and getting back from work. I had no time for anything. And they weren't even jobs that were a part of my purpose. They were office jobs in banking and pharmaceuticals and things like that. I was a secretary. And I liked being organised and I liked seeing the money going in at the end of the month. But those weren't career options. I was just keeping someone else's business afloat, helping some other director to organise their diary and things like that. It was a means to an end. It meant for 17 years I worried less about money, but it was always, you know, you were getting through the week and living for the weekends, which is ridiculous. 5 days of the week you hated for 2 days. And that's no way to live. And I know that that's how so many people live. But lots of people just want to do that. They just want to go out, do a job, earn the money, come back, go to the pub on a Friday night, take away, and they're happy. But I don't work like that. That's not me. I'm purpose driven. I'm interest driven. I'm passion driven. Even though those passions have waned a lot and I'm not as, you know, as crazy enthusiastic and driven as I used to be, I still just want to do the things that I want to do. I learnt how to say no. I learnt how to turn down things that didn't seem to me worth it. And why not? I don't want to be a slave to, you know, whatever it is. My dad was really lucky. He worked in the same job his entire life. and he loved it. It was the thing he always wanted to do. He was an electrical engineer and rose up through the ranks and loved his job, didn't even want to retire. But I think his generation are one of the last, or probably the last, that had jobs like that. These days, everyone's a ladder climber, or the jobs that people love just don't stick around long enough for them. And it is a lot tougher now, and I think particularly if you're creative and creatively minded, and you have to go with your heart over your head at some point, and it comes with sacrifices. And incomes are often the sacrifice, because the trope that creatives, creative jobs just don't make enough money is still true. Creativity and art and TV programs, it's all creativity. And our entire society survives off it. We need it. And yet, like working in the NHS, it's badly paid. But you have to take that as part of the deal, I think, and find ways around it. And I kind of like the ways around it that I found. My self-sufficiency, that I can survive a pandemic financially unscathed, says a lot about what I've learnt, I think. But yeah, purpose. I'm going to plan my car camping trips. It'll give me something to look forward to, but I don't know what I need. I'm still working it out. It's ticking over in the back of my mind all the time. What is that extra element that I need that makes me feel like I still have that purpose, that what I do actually matters? Because it needs to account for more than just me indulging myself in creative things that I like. It needs to have some impact somewhere. And I think that's the question I need to answer at the moment. So that's my Wednesday morning thoughts over coffee. I think that's enough work for one day. I'm going to go and get myself organised, get dressed, and what have you. I suppose this channel really is creating some of that purpose. Maybe that is it. And I suppose it depends on how many people it reaches. We're doing okay. I am being seen. People are watching things. It's frightening. I dread to think what people think of this. But it's a learning curve. I've only been doing this for almost a month and a half, and I've never done anything like this before. So I'm learning. I'm getting there. It takes time, but it's fun. And maybe that's the direction of the purpose. But we'll see. So I'm going to sign off for now, because I've got that off my chest, and now my brain can relax a little bit and my thoughts can sink back and I can focus on the day. Overthinking. It's really terrible for you.